If you like our content, please like, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get alerts when we introduce new videos.
In this brief video demonstration, we're going to take a look at registering APs to the various RUCKUS management platforms. Let's get started. Registering APs to RUCKUS SmartZone. So here I am logged into my instance of SmartZone that I'm running in the lab, and this is a look at the access points currently on the system just to show you that I currently don't have anything registered to this instance of SmartZone. And before we actually get to the point where we're going to actually register something, the first thing I want to talk about is the firmware available on the APs. So I'm actually going to go over to support.ruckuswireless.com, where you can download the firmware for any of the devices that you may own. And when you're looking at the firmware options available, so we're looking at the RUCKUS R310 access point in this case, you can notice that there's 3 different types of firmware to choose from. So the first thing that is listed here is the RUCKUS Solo Access Point software. You also see RUCKUS Unleashed software here, as well as ZoneFlex Solo Access Point firmware. We're not really going to focus on the ZoneFlex or Zone Director aspects as far as a management platform. We're going to be just talking in this instance about SmartZone. But if you are running Solo Access Point firmware, you can register the AP into SmartZone. You can onboard it. You can still do that with Unleashed as well, but it is all CLI driven at that point to be able to go in and get this firmware to recognize a SmartZone controller. So in the case of what I'm running here in this demo, I actually have the 110 Solo Access Point firmware loaded already onto this particular AP. So the next step in the process, there's a couple different ways that the AP could be actually added. I've logged in here to the web management portion on this AP, and we can see what version of software we're running here. This is just basically a defaulted AP with no configuration on it at all right now. So we can see we're running that 110 solo code, and if I go under administration management, my session has timed out, so let me just log back in with my default credentials here. Let me go back under management. We do have an option to set a controller address. So if we want to get this particular AP into SmartZone, we can enable this, and then we can specify the primary controller address here. This is just the management, in this case, the management address of the SmartZone controller. So if I entered that in here, this AP would start communicating with SmartZone. Another way that we can do this is actually through CLI. So I'm actually going to bring over the CLI window. All right, so here we are. We're logged in to the CLI of this particular AP. So we can actually use the get SCG command to see currently what is configured in terms of the SmartZone configuration, and we can see that it is enabled. It's not being currently managed, and there is no IP address, and there's no connected state. So I'm actually just going to run the command to get this configured. So we're going to do set SCG IP, and that is the IP of my particular controller. So we should see that go right away to OK. So that configuration is set. And again, I did it through CLI, but I could have done it through this web UI via that primary controller address. So either way, I'm going to flip back over to SmartZone, log back in. And I am going to go back to my network and my access points. And we can see that within the staging zone, we actually have the AP showing up here. So this is our particular AP that we were running. I want to quickly jump back into the CLI of our AP and give you a look at the actual firmware. So I told you we were running the 110 solo code, so I ran the command firmware show all here, And if we look down, we've got two different, a primary and a secondary boot image. Both of them are running the 110 solo code, so that's what we expect. But the reason I bring this up is because once we put this guy, depending on your version of SmartZone, if you have Essentials, the behavior is a little different. But once we move this particular AP out of the staging zone and put him in a domain, it's going to change the code that is actually on this. It's going to be running SmartZone code. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I am going to move this particular AP into just Team XX Zone, choose OK, say yes. It's going to take a few minutes to do that, but I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and come back and show you the change to the firmware that is made once the AP is fully integrated into SmartZone. All right, so I let a few moments lapse and the configuration and SmartZone firmware was pushed over to this AP. So now we can see that this is running the 600.99.1259 code version in both the primary boot and secondary boot image. So once you have an AP that is fully integrated into SmartZone, it's actually going to receive that SmartZone firmware. And that is all we have to do to get this AP registered into SmartZone so that SmartZone can manage it. Next, we'll take a look at the process of registering an AP to RUCKUS Cloud. And now here we are logged into my RUCKUS Cloud account. And as we can see, we don't have any wireless access points currently defined here. So if I click on Wi-Fi, we see that we have no APs at all. So before we get to the point where we need to add an AP, we need to get some information. So switching back to the view of the AP itself, I have put the 110 solo firmware back on this. We had explained that what that was in the previous SmartZone section. So what I actually need to grab from this AP is the serial number. So you can find that via the CLI when you log in, or you can find that via the web UI right here under the device status. I'm going to copy that, and then I'm just going to go into the management tab and verify that my Cloud Discovery agent is enabled. By default, it should be enabled. If for some reason you've disabled this, you need to enable it so that we can add this AP into the cloud. So flipping back over to the cloud, I'm actually going to click on Add AP. I have already defined a venue here. I had created that previously, but if you haven't done that, go ahead and specify your venue. We can set the AP name, so I'm just going to say Ruckus R310. That's what this is. I'm going to apply the serial number and simply click Create. And we can see we've got a status down here of adding. As long as this AP has internet connectivity, it will reach out to the cloud. So I'm just going to wait a few moments and then come back once that process has finished. We can see now that our AP has contacted the cloud, and it has gone from operation, changed status from unknown to operational, applying configuration. We're going to wait a few more moments here for it to completely finish applying the config. We now see that the status has upgraded to operational, applying firmware, so we're going to continue to wait until this is fully operational. Now that we're operational, we can go ahead and set up wireless LANs to be propagated throughout this, through this AP and stuff. One thing to note is that once you import the AP into the cloud, you will no longer have control of it via the web UI, but you still can manage the AP through CLI. So the way to do that, though, is first by getting the password for the AP. Once you bring the AP in, unlike SmartZone, you don't define the admin password at the zone level, so you actually have to select the AP that you've added, go over to the AP properties, and here you will find the system generated admin password for that AP. So we can click copy password. We can then open up your terminal emulator software, and let me go ahead and slide that over here so we can log in to this system with that password that I just copied. So here we are logged into the AP, and if we do firmware show all on this, we can see that again it is not running the solo code 110. The firmware was replaced with the RUCKUS Cloud firmware version in both of these primary and secondary image slots. So that is the process to get your AP onboarded into the cloud. Finally, we will take a look at the process to register APs to Ruckus Unleashed. We're logged into an existing Ruckus Unleashed deployment here, and we can see that there are already some access points and Wi-Fi networks that are currently being serviced by this Unleashed instance. If I click on access points, of note, we can see that we've got two APs, one of which is my R510 master and then an R650. We're going to add another R510 to this deployment, and the process is really quite simple. We're going to select the master here and look at the Show System Overview tab, just so we can verify which version of code we're running. So as it was important to make sure you're aware of your code version when we were talking about SmartZone and Cloud, it is equally important for Unleashed. So for the device that I want to add, I have to make sure that I'm running an Unleashed software version. I cannot be running the solo code or ZoneFlex firmware and get into the Unleashed network. I have to be running the Unleashed instance, and preferably running the same version as the master, although it's not a hard requirement. If the node that or the AP I'm trying to add is running a later version, I will be prompted to upgrade that as part of the onboarding process. So let's take a look at what the AP I'm currently looking to add is running. Logging into the CLI of the AP that I'm looking to add, we can see that really it's already been grabbed by the Unleashed master. Right after we log in, we're seeing that the AP is in Unleashed managed mode, and we are kind of seeing already who is managing it. So the 1.32 AP is already managing this particular guy. So if I look at the firmware show all, this was made possible because, number one, these APs are all on the same subnet, so it's just going to auto-discover the master and try to join in. That's where the code versions will come into play. If you're not at the right code version, it'll let it in, but it'll kind of keep it offline until you get it up to the correct rev. But we can see the version that I'm running on this is 200.9.10.4.202, which happened to be the same version as my master. So if we switch back over to Unleashed, we should be able to see that the 31 AP is already connected up, and as a matter of fact, the client's already joined it. So once that AP gets pulled into the Unleashed network, it will start propagating the WLANs that are already configured on it as well. So very, very easy to add APs into your Unleashed network. If this was a brand new Unleashed network and you had no APs in Unleashed at all, you would start the Unleashed wizard from the UI. So you would just go to the web UI, the address of your AP, log in with the default credentials, and you would be thrown into the Unleashed startup wizard, which would walk you through getting that master configured. That was a very quick look at the processes behind adding APs into the Ruckus management platform. So we hope you found it useful, and we also hope you can catch us for additional demo content.